Do, 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 do. Hello, 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 hello. Hello, everybody. Let me just double check. I'm going to be double checking everything. Just to see how everything sounds and everything. As I said, this is going to be a mostly just me testing stream. Right. How do I sound? 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 I sound okay. I sound okay. How do I sound with the music? I sound okay. I sound okay. How do I sound with the music? I sound okay. How do I sound with the music? I sound okay. How do I sound with the music? Okay. Let's just have a quick look at the video itself. Hello, 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 hello. Hello, everybody. Okay, I do need to lower it a bit more, but I am a bit quiet, which is going to be a shame. But let me have a look at my filters. Maybe I can slightly turn up my gain. Right, let's have a check of it now to see if that's changed much. Sorry about this. It will be a bit janky, as I said in the tweets. Okay, yeah, I like how I sound. I like how I sound. You know what? Also, just as a little bit of a thing for me, let's just go into volume mix and just there. That's better. Anyway, how's everybody doing? Hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody's recovering from whatever you were doing over the Christmas period. I think I'm gonna sound a bit quieter, and it's gonna be a while getting used to this being here, you know? But I think I'll get used to it. Anyway, my plan today is just sort of having a chill stream, kind of just being used as like I'm gonna look back at this stream as a video and just sort of see if the volume mixing's okay, if it sounds okay, how this new mic is, mainly just for stuff like whether I can hear oh, okay. Can everybody hear me? Is everything okay? Is everything working? Oh, I think my mic's the thing that's just gone then. Yeah, my mic. Not my mic, sorry, my camera. I don't know what's happened there. Hold on a second, let me just hide that for a bit. Well done, we'll just have me blimmin' looking completely confused for a second. Okay, so that's something that's going to be changing. Occasionally it has this where it doesn't work. I'm gonna check, so you know what would be funny is if I just go like not if I just put like working out some scuff. Yeah, I'm no pirate software, but yeah, look at that while I do stuff. That worked? Let's have a quick check on my mic. Properties. Deactivate, activate. Come on. You've got this, little Mike. I believe in you. I believe in you. While this is doing this, actually, let me just go turn on a light. Yeah, that's a bit better. Oh, this thing's properly gone. Hold on a second. God, it's properly gone. What the heck has happened here? Oh, 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 I think I'm back. I think I got it working. Weird. Okay, so that's back working. Whether that's what's gonna happen later, I've got no idea. I should have just typed it. Why did I think I could do a pirate software and write it really, really well? Anyway, the plan today is very, very simple. We're just going to look through some Pathfinder stuff. So I did this before, and I did this just sort of looking specifically at... like, word stuff. I don't know why I said word stuff. I had the word stuff. I had that in my mind for some reason. I've got no idea why. What I more meant was I looked at stuff specifically to do with the class I was going to be playing. Instead of like just looking generally at like just generally looking at it for fun. And so I thought, as a stream, to sort of just test everything and test volumes and everything, and it will be very like occasionally interrupted with me like having a look at just how the volume sounds and everything, and how I sound and all that. But yeah, that's my plan, is to just generally have a look at like Pathfinder, just see if there's anything here that I'm like 100% like this is okay, this is cool. Right, so but just before that, let's have one look at recent stuff. Let's turn this off just for a second. Have a quick listen to us back again. No, not this one. Yeah. I had that in my mind for some reason. I've got no idea why. What I more meant was I looked at stuff specifically to do with... Yeah, okay. I think I sound... Oh, there's another one of those. Well, luckily the chat box wasn't working. Or maybe it was and I wasn't looking at it. Tell you what, let me just send a test just to see if this is working. Themed box. Yeah. I just need to send a text, please. A test, sorry. Oh, well, no, I can just test by doing this, right? Test. Yeah, okay, it does work. So that did appear. You did get free advertising, sadly. Oh well. So yeah, my plan generally look through. I think I'm going to be sticking to the ancestral feats just because they're the things that seem to give me the most interest. The idea that we can. Well, let me move this a bit closer to me. The idea that we could maybe like find a racial trait and sort of build a character around how cool that looks is something that I really want to do. That's something that's in my head, like the thing I want to do. So my plan is literally just to have a look through these, see if there's any that particularly with the subclasses and with the racial feats, mainly the earlier ones. I want to see if there's any that I'm really into. As kind of just a pseudo test slash um a pseudo test slash just chill stream, really. Let me tell you what, let me put music back on. Do do do. Okay, so first off we got yep. I don't know why this happens. I thought I'd gotten this solved, but I guess I haven't. Right, I'll have to figure out how to do all of this later. So for now we'll have to go no camera when we solve that. It always has a bit of a problem dealing with anything else in its same general area, I think. I'm not sure. We'll have a look into it later. Anyway, let's get back to this. We've got the Ancient Blooded Dwarf. So they have a reaction when you attempt a saving throw, but you haven't rolled yet. You gain a +1 until the end of this turn. Okay, now this is the thing with Pathfinder that I'll probably figure out a bit more once I've actually played a couple games of it. But they're very heavily into this idea of like a lot of things that just give you a +1. And the +1's pretty good because it's a plus. Like it adds like about a +1/20th to something or something, right? But the problem with this is that when I figure out when I'm rating what a +1 is, I'm rating it in the idea of let's move a bit closer. I'm rating it in the idea of like a D&D, where D&D is like even the later stuff max is gonna have like what, like 24 AC. Like it'll be something. It'll always be something like pretty high, but not like insanely high. But then from what I can gather from what I've played of the games, and this could be wrong in the actual setting itself, or like in an actual module or something, is they very much like to up the what's the word I'm trying to think of? They try the AC on stuff is a lot higher in Pathfinder. They sort of go for the upwards of like the 40s and stuff for AC later on. And so this becomes, to me, when I'm looking at a racial feat, I want it to be a racial, sorry, not a racial feat. When I'm looking at like a subclass or a racial feat, I'm looking at something that potentially I could continue using even into the later one. I'm looking for scaling effectively. I like the idea of there having a scaling ability that is part of my character because I use it so much, right? So the idea of like you get a +1 against magical effects. This seems really good early on. Like I don't even think it looks really good early on, actually. 1 second, let me just double check in case. Doesn't work. Also, let me move all the way up to it. Also, we're doing this for a second, just to see in case I hadn't put this in streamer mode, and I didn't want you to see, you know, people who don't want to be seen. Woodoo. So I don't know. I don't rate these kinds of abilities particularly high, and from what I've seen of looking at this before, you don't get many scaling abilities here as a dwarf, it seems. Death Warden Dwarf. Your ancestors have the power to ward off death passed on to you. If you roll a success on a saving throw against an effect that has a void trait or was created by an undead, you get a critical success instead. See, this one's a bit more in the scaling aspect, I feel, because in the scheme of things, no matter what level you are, you're going to be rolling saving throws and you're going to, you know, be getting successes and stuff. And so, like, this always feels like it's going to get some use out of it. Oh, I got it working again. It's probably going to fail eventually, but hey, I'm back again. So this one feels like there'll be actually some use out of it. Like you're always going to get use out of it, because realistically, I mean, again, bear in mind everything I say is coming from the mindset of like D&D. Like, it's literally the only thing I can use as a reference, because it's the only thing I particularly know a lot about, in my opinion. So when I look at this, I'm like, undead, very, 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 very common type to deal with. From what I can gather, void is the new trait for they're getting rid of like positive and negative, I think, and void is replacing negative, from what I can gather. So you're gonna get use out of this realistically, unless specifically the module's all about, say, like, you're going to fight the Angels of the North or something, you know? So I like this one a lot more. You have a remarkable adaptation to hot environments. This grants you fire resistance equal to half your level, and you treat environmental heat effects as if they're one stress less extreme. Yep, there it is. Okay, well, we'll have to. I'll have to troubleshoot that later. I think it'll just be moving around where my USBs are, so that this one's on its own. I just don't think it can handle being in the same sort of like row as somebody else's. It might be a computer problem. It could be a my problem. I don't know. It's something for me to figure out later. That's not an on-stream thing. I might do another stream where I test it out again. But this fire resistance thing, equal to half of your level. From what I can gather, fire resistance works in the way of like it's a flat number and you take that number off of all the damage that is that number. So like if it's fire resistance 5, you take 5 damage off of any fire based attacks, from what I can gather. If I'm reading that right, I feel like this is another one of the ones I was talking about that's a scaling one. Now, whether this scales particularly high is a different story. Like when you're level 10, is 5 fire resistance huge? Is that going to be the deciding factor? The only thing I can compare it to is in Pathfinder. At like level 8 or 9, I got an armor that had an additional effect that was like piercing damage you have resistance 5 to. And that one was, I used it immediately, but like that wasn't the only thing you got from it. It was also very good armor. So I don't know, maybe that would be useful. I would probably, at the moment, these two are the ones I'm looking at as like I want to make a character around. Instantly you think like, oh, I want to make a death warden dwarf whose whole shtick is that he had a brief instance with death, like he had a situation where like he almost died, and then through that he's decided to become like, I don't know, a cleric of a death god or something. That'd be kind of cool. Or like the forged dwarf. Instantly I'm like, ooh, heavy armored dude with a huge hammer. Maybe try and get him some fire-based powers if I can get that kind of character. Really, that'd be really cool. Your ancestors, rock dwarf, your ancestors lived and worked among the ancient stones of the mountains at the depths of the cave, the earth. This makes you solid as a rock when you plant your feet. You gain +2 circumstance bonus to fortitude reflex DC against attempts to reposition, shove, or trip you. This bonus also applies to saving throws against spells that attempt to force you to move or knock you prone. In addition, if any effect would force you to move 10 feet or more, you'll only move half the distance. I'm not sure how good this is, cause it is a +2. +2s seem like they're pretty significant, at least early game. But then on the flip side, it has that... I know movement's a bit more of a thing in Pathfinder because you're using an action to move, which is an action where you're not attacking or doing a spell or something, right? But I guess in my head, I don't rate being less likely to be moved or moving less distances as a particularly incredible thing, if I'm being honest. So I wouldn't rate this one very highly at all. In fact, I'd probably just dismiss this. Strong-blooded dwarf. Your blood runs hearty and strong. You can shake off toxins. You gain poison resistance equal half your level. Each of your successful saving throws against a poison affliction reduces its status by 2 or by 1 for a virulent poison. Okay. So I think poison's a bigger thing in Pathfinder. It's not just the runt of damage types. So I do think that this one probably is in a similar stage to this because they're very similar abilities. I still think realistically you're gonna get more out of fire damage, because I don't think I've seen a campaign where one of the major factions hasn't had a significant part of them be fire damage, just in general, because fire's like the obvious thing that people go to no matter what campaign you're in. Let's have a look at a couple of the ancestral feats. Maybe there's some interesting things in them, because as much as I've said these two are probably up there as my tops, they're still not ones where I'm I think I could build a character around. And maybe that's not what they're going for, but that's sort of what I want to be getting from these, so that's what I'm going to be coming out with the mindset of. You are naturally calm and collected in the face of danger. At the start of your turn, reduce your frightened condition by 2 instead of 1. seems generally okay. I don't think I'd be interested in this. The lore ones I'm never interested in. Weapon familiarity. It's good if you want it, I just don't see the logic in them. +1 circumstance bonus with weapons and unarmed attacks against creatures, giants, goblins, and orcs. That would deal more than one weapon die of damage. The bonus is equal to the number of weapon dice or unarmed attack die. In addition, if you critically succeed an attack against you, and any creature critically succeeds an attack against you and deals damage to you, you gain a bonus to damage against that creature for 1 minute, regardless of whether it's your chosen type. I like that. I like this ability a lot. It seems like there's fun use out of that. I think that's the second thing that I'm looking for. One, I'm looking for something I can build a character around, like some trait that I can have as part of my backstory and be interested and like integrate into my backstory, you know? Another thing I'm looking for is something like this. Something where I know I'll get a lot of use out of it is the big thing for me. So I know for a fact that, like, I'm going to get use out of this ability because either, I mean, these types, goblins and orcs, are again one of the most common types. But even if that doesn't happen, with the amount of enemies you'll be dealing with, occasionally one is going to crit you. And when they crit you and then you have this nice little cool bonus, it's going to feel great. Rock Runner. Your innate connection to stone makes you adapt to moving on uneven surfaces. You ignore difficult terrain caused by stone and uneven ground made of stone and earth. In addition, when you use the acrobatic skill to balance a narrow uneven bit of stone, you aren't off guard, and when you roll a success on one of these acrobatic checks, you get a crit success. I think this is very... I don't know, I could see the use of this, I could see the point in it, I could see some logic to it, but I'm not hugely interested in it. I don't know what to say about this one, really. It's not interesting to me. I don't look at this and go, this is something that it sparks interest in me. It's not like the other one that I'll feel like I'll get a load out of it. But also it's simultaneously, there's something there. You know, there's something there that's interesting. I don't know, it's really hard to evaluate that one. Stonemason's Eye. You understand the intricacies of stonework. You become trained in crafting. If you're already trained in crafting, you instead gain a specialty crafting feat. You gain the specialty crafting skill feat for stonemasonry. You also gain a +2 circumstance bonus to perception checks to notice unusual stonework. Bonus applies to discover checks to discover mechanical traps made of stone or hidden within stone. If you aren't using the seek action or searching, the GM automatically rolls a secret check to notice unusual stonework anyway. Oh, that's cool. I really like this. Like, it on the surface, I'm like, it didn't seem interesting at the start. But, like, not only are you getting crafting skills, which could work for your class, if you already are going heavily into crafting, you get stonemasonry, which goes even more into your class, because you can come into the idea of like, oh, the reason I'm so good at stonemasonry is because I came from a family who always have been part of that work, or I had a particular interest in the ancient ruins, and so I learned about how they potentially could have been built. I saw an ancient ruin of a former giant race, and I was infatuated with it, and so I learned how to use my crafting, how to like make something equivalent to that. So I quite like that. And then this bonus to perception checks to know unusual stonework. That feels like, that's cool. That's really cool. I mean, I don't think that'll come up much, but in addition, this thing of like, oh, and if they've hidden stone, mechanical traps in stone, like that gives an extra bit where it potentially could be used. And then having that finally having that thing of like, hey, even if you're not actively thinking about this ability you have, because maybe you're just like, oh, you're like, oh, this will never work. We're never in a place where this will work, and you just happen to be in it after you've forgotten. It says, hey, the GM makes a check anyway. So maybe they'll go, hey, blimmin' Gorgrok the Stonebeard, you look at that wall and you're like, that feels weird. I can feel air coming through it. It's almost like that's not a wall and is in fact a secret room. You know, that kind of thing. I think that's really cool. Unburden Iron. You've learned techniques first devised by your ancestors during their ancient wars, allowing you to comfortably wear massive suits of armor, ignore the reduction to your speed from any armor you wear. In addition, anytime you're taking a penalty to your speed from some other reason, such as from the unencumbered condition or from a spell, deduct 5 from the penalty. The encumbered condition normally gives a minus 10 foot penalty, but this feat would reduce it to 5 foot penalty. Okay. I think when it comes to these feats, I have sort of 3 general levels in which I'm looking at them. It's like not interested at all, slightly interesting. I can use this to like fundamentally improve my like my character's backstory and stuff. So when I'm looking at this, I'm going like, this one, I don't care. This one, I don't care. This one, I don't care. This one, I can see there being some... I'm quite interested. Like, I'm slightly interested. This one, I don't care. This one, fundamentally, I can add this to my backstory. I think this one falls into the, like, I'm slightly interested one. But bear in mind, depending on how many of these I go through, this weapon familiarity and lore, these are just generic ones that I think everybody has, and like, I'm not going to be interested in them most of the time. And I do feel like one of the things that other races will have over stuff like dwarfs, or like humans, to a certain extent, some elves and halflings and stuff, is dependent on what the race is. So, for example, like Leshy and... The thing I'm thinking of at the moment is like Leshy and the equivalent of like the Aasimar/Tieflings in this. I forget what they're called, but they're in the versatile heritage thing. Those ones have a lot more customization that comes from their feats, because they are physical changes to your character, which I'm always going to rate slightly higher, because it means that I have a physical difference that makes my character look unique. And look, I like to look unique. It's just one of my things. I want my character to look exactly how I've got him in my head, and if I can take a feat that goes, hey, they have something that means that they have that feat, they have that thing, so like, ooh, I really would love it if my character, who's like this, is really into this, like, into freedom. He wants to break from the chains that his family put on him. And I really want to represent this with him, like, thanks to his like demonic heritage, he gained wings, and like it was like, hey, look, it's like a symbol of him breaking away from these chains that his family had put on him. If I can get a trait that's like, because of your demonic heritage you get wings, I'm like, perfect. I'm rating that one so highly. I'll tell you what, let's look at the 5th level ones, because there's occasional stuff in here that like piggybacks off other feats that we have, but we won't look into this too much. So if we take in Rock Runner, which by the way I was like kind of not interested in, we could take at the 5th level Boulder Roll, which is your dwarven build allows you to push foes around just like a mighty boulder tumbling through a subterranean cavern. Take a step into a square of a foe that is your size or smaller, and the foe must move into an empty space directly behind it. The foe must move even if doing so places it in harm's way. The foe can attempt a fortitude save against your athletics DC to block your step. If a foe attempts a saving throw, it takes bludgeoning damage equal to your level plus your strength modifier unless it critically succeeds. If the foe can't move into an empty space, it's surrounded by a solid object or other creatures, for example, your boulder roll has no effect. This is a cool ability. My two problems with it are this. I'd have to take Rock Runner, which I'm not particularly interested in, and this ability takes 2 actions, bearing in mind you have 3. And I'm not... I know that Step is an ability, a movement ability, but from what I remember, Step is just like a 5-foot thing. You do like a 5-foot step. Which, to me, means you can move them back like 1 space, or if they don't want to do it, they take damage. And I'm using 2 of my actions for that. That doesn't feel particularly interesting, in my opinion. If this feature didn't have the prerequisite, I think I'd put it in mildly interesting, because it also has the prerequisite, and also I'm not a huge what's the word? I'm not a huge liker of abilities that just move people around. I don't find them... I'm sure there's ways you can use them that are really interesting, but I can't figure them out, and so I don't consider them that interesting. Defy the darkness. Prerequisite dark vision. Using ancient dwarven methods developed to fight enemies wielding magical darkness, you've honed your dark vision and swore not to use such magic yourself. You gain greater dark vision, enabling you to see through magical darkness even if it's normally hampers dark vision. Okay, cool. You can't cast spells with the darkness trait, use item activations with the darkness trait, use any other abilities with the darkness trait. Interesting. What's interesting about this is my thinking as just somebody that doesn't have a load of knowledge when it comes to Pathfinder is this is really cool as an ability. This would go into, I think, mildly interesting for me, because I could see this being an important part. Now, you know what? I'm going to put this in the higher tier, because I can see this being very cool for role-playing, and like having like a proper reason behind, yeah, I was so fearful of, say, this shadowy leopard that would terrorize our village, or like a unit of dark elves that had decided that they wished for our people and constantly attacked us using magical darkness to hamper our vision, that I have developed this ability to see through the darkness and have such a hatred for darkness because of it, that I can't use darkness stuff. Like I could see that being a really interesting thing to use for role playing. My only worry is, and this is a tiny worry, this line here of not being able to use spells with the darkness trait, items with the darkness trait, or any abilities with the darkness trait. I think there is a potential where you'd actually want to be, because you're not hampered by dark vision, you'd actually kind of want your character to be using items or potentially abilities to have the darkness trait. Just because I imagine there being abilities that are like, you do more damage in darkness, and they have the darkness trait. Or like, if you're in darkness, gain a bonus towards your stealth or something, you know? Having the darkness trait on that. And I could see situations where you'd actually be hampered by this ability, even though narratively it makes complete sense. and you'd want this ability in conjunction to what you have. Maybe the whole reason why they've put this here is specifically because it was too overpowered if you didn't have that. I don't know. I'd put this in the top tier though. Like, I could see myself making my backstory, even if I'm not starting at level 5, making a backstory, integrating me eventually taking this. Eventually taking this ability. What's the last one? Dwarven Reinforcement. You can use your knowledge of engineering and metalwork to temporarily strengthen thick objects and structures. By spending 1 hour working on an item, you give it a +1 circumstance bonus to its hardness for 24 hours. If you're master in crafting, the bonus is +2. And if you're legendary in crafting, the bonus is +3. You can reinforce a portion of a structure, though 1 hour usually reinforces only a door, a few windows, or another section that fits within a 10-foot cube. Okay, I like this. I like this a lot, because it gives you something to do as a downtime activity, and that it gives you a bonus that I think is not insignificant. If you put that on a shield, I feel like you could be bumping it up by, like, not an insignificant amount. Like, it'll be useful. You know what I mean? Yeah, so let's go a quick overview of the dwarf stuff, okay? This ability here, I don't care for. This ability here, mildly interested. This ability here, mildly interested. This ability I don't care for. This ability I'm mildly interested in. In terms of these abilities, this one I don't care for. Lore I don't care for. Familiarity I don't care for. Mountain strategy, I can see that getting used, so I'm mildly interested in it. This one I don't care for. This one I really, really like, and I could see myself making a character around. This one I mildly care about. This one I'd say I'm mild on. This one I'm probably I'm pretty high on, and this one I'm also pretty high on. I'll put this one as mild, because I could see this being sort of like a combo with this, but I just don't rate this one incredibly highly. Let's have a look at elves. Let's have a look at the elven heritages. So you got Ancient Elf. In your long life, you've dabbled in many paths and many styles. A typical Ancient Elf is at least 100 years old, though you might be younger. Choose a class other than your own. You gain a multi-class dedication feat for that class, even though you don't meet its level requirements. This seems very good. This seems like, although I don't know if it would be its tool in helping you its ability in helping you increase, like, make your backstory better isn't hugely high, but what it does do is it reminds me a heck of a lot of the variant human in D&D, where you got a feat from you got just a feat instead of ability score improvements. And loads of people took that because it just, like, feats were so interesting and it was so hard to get them. Now, feats are a lot easier in this, but a multi-class dedication feat, I have seen many people optional rule as, like, I say many people, I know a person that does optional rules of, like, these being free because they're so fun, and not wanting to waste your not waste, but, like, you're not wanting to use your feat on one of these, like a multi-class feat, because you got other feats you want to be taking that aren't related to that. having an ancient elf, which is just like one of them's for free, is just a really cool idea. I think I'd want to flavor it as, if I was using it, I don't know if I'd want to flavor it as ancient elf, because I don't like the idea. And maybe this would be slightly different because of the way that dedication feats are kind of just like, they're like half of a class, they're not like the whole, like, multi-classing. But I don't know, I don't think I'd mind it, actually. If the idea that, like, say you were, you hunted for your local village, and so you use this ability, even though you're not a hunter now, to take, like, a multi-class dedication in, I don't know, like, ranger or whatever the equivalent is in these classes. Ranger, yeah. I think that's fine. I quite like this one. I'd put this top tier. Arctic elf. Sorry, hold on a second. Seems to just have the same ability as the Forged Dwarf, except for cold. I'd probably put this at the same place as the Forged Dwarf, as sort of like mildly interesting. Cavern Elf, you gain Dark Vision. Now, I have heard that what Paizo and Pathfinder like to do is they like to get rid of all the dark visions that in D&D everybody has, and they replaced it with low light vision, which is effectively in dim light you can see stuff as if it's bright light. And so dark vision is a lot harder to get, and so this is a bit more useful than you'd initially think if you come from D&D. I still find it a bit of a boring trait to take, because it doesn't give me much role-playing use, and it doesn't really scale, but I could see why you take that. Seer Elf, you have an inborn ability to detect and understand magical phenomena. You cast the Detect Magic cantrip as an arcane initiate spell at will. A cantrip is heightened to a spell rank equal to half your level rounded up. In addition, gain a +1 circumstance bonus to checks to identify magic, to decipher writing of magical nature. Okay. I can see this getting some use. I like the idea of maybe being a non-magical class, but having this as your ability, so that you can just detect magic, just generally see if there's something around. It can be very, very useful as a spell. And also just to have this, hey look, I'm because of where I come from, because of like role-playing reasons, you can go like, I like seeing sub-races as not being, I have this because of my race, even though arguably that is what they're trying to do, but more as like, okay, how did I gain this ability? And so I gained the idea of like, I was in a village, I was really into magical artifacts, I was like maybe really into archaeology of like an ancient empire, and so I learned how to be better at identifying magic and to deciphering magical writing, because that's how they wrote to this ancient empire. I also gained the Detect Magic cantrip because I learned it from the archaeologist that I was working with, who said it was like invaluable as when you are going through this ancient empire that's very magical in nature, and having it where it scales over your level instead of like any magical means is pretty useful as well. It means that you're always going to get some use out of this. Whisper Elves. Your ears are finely tuned, able to detect even the slightest whispers of sound. You get a +2 circumstance bonus when using the seek action to find hidden or undetected creatures within 30 feet of you. When you target an opponent that is concealed from you or hidden from you, reduce the DC of the flat check to 3 for a concealed target, or 9 for a hidden one. This benefit doesn't apply if you can't hear, or if the creature is incapable of making sound. I think I'd put this in the mildly interesting camp, because I look at this and I go, the +2 circumstance bonus I could take or leave. I don't really care for that. Unless it's a huge bonus or it's a scaling bonus, I don't feel like I'm going to be particularly interested in them. But the especially with the restriction of it being within 30 feet. But the idea of like, oh, but even though I'm good at seeking, I kind of have this ability that means maybe I don't need to even care about it, because from what I can gather of like when it says flat check, that's literally just you roll a d20 and you take the roll. There's very very few things that give you bonuses or makes it easier for you when it comes to flat checks. And so the idea that like I don't off the top of my head I don't remember what the normal person who is concealed flat check is, but when it's hidden it's a flat d10 check, right? It's 50-50 if you hit them or not. The idea that you can go, it's not a 50-50, it's like a 55% in my favor. It's a pretty significant change. An extra 5%, you know, it adds up, you know? So I could see that I'm mildly interested in this, because most of the time this is probably not coming up, right? It's very unlikely that you've been deafened. It's very unlikely that they specifically can't make sound. Maybe at the later levels that'll become up more, I don't know. Woodland elf. When climbing trees, vines and other foliage, you can move half your speed on success and full on critical success. And you move at full speed on a success if you have the quick climb. This doesn't affect you if you're using a climb speed. You can also use the take cover action when you are within forest terrain to gain cover, even if you're not next to an object. You can take cover behind. This is a cool ability. My only complaint about it is if I'm a woodland elf and I know how to climb trees and foliage, I'd make the argument I should just get a climb speed related to trees, vines and other foliage. I think this, you move at half speed on the success and you move at full speed on a critical success, feels well too weak, and that they should really have just gone the whole hog and gone, you have a climb speed but only related to trees, vines and other foliage because you're used to it. And then maybe even gotten rid of this ability or like kept it, depending on how strong that would have been. Now I'm not going to be hugely blimmin' what's the word? I'm not going to be hugely like good at figuring out balances when it comes to this, but I think generally it would feel so bad to be climbing a tree as a woodland elf who, as they even say, you know how to climb trees and use foliage to your advantage, and to fail, have a chance at failing, or even, you know what, even better, have it where it's like, if you make the check, even on a success you move at half your speed, and even on a failure you move at half your speed, and on a success you move on the full speed, and critical successes don't matter when it comes to climbing trees, or maybe it doubles your speed. Like, just moving it a bit more so it's like, even if I fail the roll, it still shows that I'm adept at this to the point where it just means I'm slower, you know? I just think that all this does is means that when I use this feat, there is a chance that I have that feel bad of like, oh, the thing I didn't do well. And I like feats specifically towards this, especially when they are that limited, where it's like, oh, it's only climbing through specific things. When they're that limiting, I want them to have a bit of a fallback to them of like, hey, even if you fail, here's a little something. Like, you still fail. I'm sorry if you to say, but you still fail. But you at least get this little something that shows, hey, you are pretty proficient in this still. So even though you failed, you didn't 100% fail. You know? Let's have a look at these feats. I'll tell you what, let me do a little bit of a wrap up of the heritages first. Ancient one, I think it's insane. I feel like anyone that's come from D&D is going to look at that and go, well, that's an automatic pick. That's so useful. Not because of necessarily these lines, the lore reasons, but the fact that you can use this to come up with loads of lore reasons. I think that knowing my expertise, I mean, again, coming from D&D where feats are a bit more of a rarity, but I feel like this is a auto pick, and I just think you'd be talking to your DM about not it being related to being an ancient elf, but instead just being related to being experienced in something and then choosing something else. This one I'm mildly interested because of the scaling, but generally it's just the same as the Forge Dwarf. This I'm not that interested in. This one I think there's a load you can do with. I really quite like it. Although I don't normally go the characters that I think would have this, because I try and stick away from the naturally intelligent characters, because I don't feel like I'm particularly good at playing them. I do think it is a quite interesting feat, and I love the fact that it's here. Whisper, this one I think I'm mildly interested in, mainly for this second half to it. I think is a lot more interesting than the just +2 circumstance bonus. Woodland Elf, not that interested in. I think they could make it stronger and it wouldn't be bad. Let's have a look at the first level feats of the elves. You've got Ancestral Longevity, which the prerequisite is you're at least 100 years old, which feels like it restricts them to most of the time. If you're making a character from level 1, it probably restricts them to being an ancient elf. But maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. You've accumulated a vast array of lived knowledge over the years. During your daily preparations, you can reflect upon your life skills to gain the trained proficiency rank in one skill of your choice. This proficiency lasts until you prepare again. Since this proficiency is temporary, you can't use this prerequisites. Right, sure, that makes sense. I don't like this feat. The reason I don't like this feat is very, very simple. My experience when it comes to TTRPGs, everyone specializes, right? Everyone has a specialization that they're really, really good at. This person's really good at survival. This person's really good at crafting. This person's really good at the arcane. They probably have like 2 or 3 that they're really, really good at. Probably tangentially related to whatever attribute they've put as the highest. If I have this ability, realistically, all I'm doing is treading on other people's toes. Because normally we have almost everything covered through the party, and this is just with like a 4-person group. If I've got the bigger the group it gets, the less I'm likely to take this, and it would just feel weird to be like, oh yeah, I've just looked at my experience and now I'm pretty damn good at crafting. Talk to the person tomorrow. Hey, where did that crafting knowledge go? Oh, I just disappeared. I just don't have it anymore. You know, it's just gone. It feels weird. I don't like it as a concept. Elven lore, don't care for. Familiarity, don't care for. If you want to be really good at that, specifically those weapons, you probably take it. If you want to be really good at those specific lore things and elven lore in general, you probably take it. They're never going to interest me. Forlorn. Watching your friends age and die fills you with moroseness that protects you against harmful emotions. You gain a +1 circumstance bonus to saving throws against emotion effects. If you roll a success on a saving throw against emotion, you get a critical success. Okay. I don't know how often you are going to be dealing with emotion-based effects. I think less than you'll be dealing with undead/void effects. Just because of how I rate these abilities entirely on how often they'll come up. And I rate this one pretty low because I don't think emotion effects will come up that often. What I will say though is there is some merit to this as a role-playing thing. The idea that you can go like, especially if you're doing a higher level campaign and just going like, yeah, I was with another group, they all died. No, they had a long, nice life. It's just they died of old age because I'm an elf and they're not an elf, you know? I could see the use of that. I could see the interesting things you could do with that, just as, yeah, I can take this to show that, you know? But overall, I'm not that interested in this. Nimble Elf, you gain +5 speed. Might be useful. It's never going to interest me, though. Otherworldly magic. Your elven magic manifests as a simple arcane spell, even if you aren't formally trained in magic. Choose one cantrip from the arcane spell list. You cast this cantrip as an arcane innate spell at will. A cantrip is heightened to the... Okay, right. Again, not really a huge fan of these ones. Having one spell, although being interesting, I don't find that... It's okay. Like, I'd be a hypocrite to not say that this one's at least okay, because I liked the sub-race that gave you a spell, and this one at least you get to choose one, so at bare minimum this could just be detect magic, but I don't know, I don't find myself being particularly enthusiastic about it a lot of the time. Unwavering Mind. Your mystic control and meditations allow you to resist external influence upon your consciousness. Whenever you are infected by a mental effect that lasts at least 2 rounds, you reduce the duration by 1 round. You still require natural sleep, but you treat your saving throw against effects that would cause you to fall asleep as 1 degree better. This protects you only against sleep effects, not against other forms of falling unconscious. Got it. This reminds me a hell of a lot of in D&D, the Elven racial effect, which is just like you can't be magically put to sleep and you don't sleep properly. It's probably the reason they've put that line of you still require natural sleep, because people were probably seeing this as like, oh, this is the feat that allows me to have that ability that I have in D&D. Overall, I think sleep effects are very rarely used. It might be different in Pathfinder, but I feel like sleep effects are very unlikely, if ever, to come up. So it doesn't particularly interest me. The idea that a mental effects that would take more than 1 round are reduced by 1 round, I'm not sure how useful that is. If it's like... If you're doing it like D&D, where there's a couple of... Most effects either they last a round or they last like 10 rounds because they last a minute. If you're going by that sort of idea, then I don't think I'd care about having it where an effect on me that would normally take 10 rounds takes 9 rounds. That's effectively the same number in my head. You know, it's still too long. So I'm not hugely interested in this. I think of all of these feats are not hugely interesting to me. 5th level, let's see if there's anything here that I'm particularly interested in. Ageless patience. You walk at a pace born from longevity that enhances your thoroughness. You can voluntarily spend twice as much time as normal on perception checks. On a perception check or a skill check. If you do, you gain +2 circumstance bonus to the check, and don't automatically reduce your degrees of success on a natural 1. Okay, you get a critical failure only if your result is 10 lower than the DC. For example, you could get these benefits if you spent 2 actions to seek, which normally takes 1 action. You get these benefits during exploration by taking twice as long exploring as normal, or in downtime by spending twice as much downtime. Okay. I can see that being pretty useful in potentially like crafting checks or something. Like, you got a load of downtime. You don't really care if you're taking like 2 hours or 4 hours to like craft like, I don't know, like a potion. You just want it to, you don't want to waste the ingredients. And so your logic is you spend the extra time, you get the +2 circumstance bonus, but what you're really looking for is this natural ones don't reduce your degrees of success. You're really looking for the critical failures only being if you're 10 lower kind of thing. I could see the use of that. Ancestral Suspicion. Long-lived elves have seen civilizations rise and fall, often at the hands of outside forces. As a result, you have developed a wariness of others who might seek to influence or control them. You've been trained to resist manipulation, gaining a +2 circumstance bonus to saving throws against effects that would make you controlled, such as dominate, and to perception checks to sense motive when trying to determine if the creature is under the influence of such effects. When you roll a success on saving throws against such an effect, you gain a critical success instead. I kind of like this one. I know it feels it feels weird for me to say that, because it feels like it's just a +2 circumstance bonus to a thing that won't come up much. But I think when this comes up, it's going to be huge. Like, this perception checks to sense motive when trying to determine if you're under the influence of, like, the effect of, like, mind control. Won't come up often, but by God, when it does come up, you'll be like, freaking hell, this is incredible. You know, this will be like a I remember this for a while kind of thing, because it'll like blow wide open like, this noble seems like a good guy, but recently he seems to be just like doing a lot of things that are out of character. Like, he seems to be ushering in loads of people into his castle that just never return. And then you're talking to him, you roll this sense motive, you have the +2 bonus because you're trying to check if they're under the influence of a spell, and you're like, I'd like to see if he's like under any magical effects. You do this, you succeed, and it's like, holy damn. Holy damn, this dude is under the effect of like mind control. This makes so much sense, and it would crack it wide open. And I feel like, although this one is not very used much, I think I bump it up to be mildly interesting, just because I see the avenue of this perception check for sense motive being a big thing in a campaign. Martial expertise. You've crossed blades with a wide variety of foes wielding a wide variety of weapons. You learn the basics of fighting with nearly any of them. When wielding a weapon you are proficient with, treat your level as your proficiency bonus. I could see the use of that. One of the things that I think is quite useful is because it feels like you specialize a hell of a lot in Pathfinder, a bit maybe more so than you do in D&D, into a specific weapon. Having the ability to just pick and choose feels like it'd be quite useful. I don't know at the end of the day how useful the proficiency equal to your proficiency bonus equal to your level would be, but I can see the use in it. Let's have a look at gnomes. Actually, no, let me just do a quick overview of these before I do that. Mildly interesting. Mildly interesting. Mildly interesting. Probably the best feat I've seen of the elves. So I bumped that up to... No, it's still just mildly interesting. I dislike this ability. Don't care. This one has some use as being like a role-playing tool, but that's it. Don't really care. Mildly interesting. Don't really care. Gnomes. Let's have a look at gnomes. Let's look at the sub-races first. Chameleon gnome. The colour of your hair and skin is mutable, possibly due to latent magic from the first world influencing or lingering illusion effects. You can slowly change the vibrancy and the exact colour, and the coloration can be different across your body, allowing you to create patterns or other colourful designs. It takes a single action for minor localised shifts and up to an hour for dramatic shifts through your body. While you're asleep, the colour shifts on their own, in tune with your dreams, giving you an unusual coloration each morning. While you're in an area with your coloration, where your coloration is roughly similar to the environment, for example, forest green in a forest, you can use a single action to make a minor localized shift designed to help you blend into your surroundings. This grants you a +2 circumstance to spell checks until your surroundings shift in coloration or pattern. I love this ability. Frankly, this is as a character idea inherently makes me want to make one of these gnomes. It makes me want to make a gnome just in general. I don't care about this ability here at all. I mean, it's a nice little extra, but who cares? The idea that I can just be like, yeah, my character's this like flamboyant guy who can change the color of like their body and hair whenever they want to like whatever color they want. It's just such a really cool like aesthetic. Put that with like a circus performer. Put that with like a an illusion wizard. Put that with like a rogue. Like put that with just like a happy-go-lucky like explorer that's like. There's so much stuff you can do with this one that seems so fun, in my opinion. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. Fey-touched gnome. The blood of the Fey flows through your veins, saturating you with their magic and making you truly one of them. You gain the Fey trait in addition to the gnome and humanoid trait. I don't know how useful the Fey trait is. I'm assuming it has some use, or else they wouldn't have put this here, but I've got no idea. Choose one cantrip from the primal spell list. Can be useful. You can cast this as a primal innate spell at will. It's heightened to your level. You can change this cantrip to a different one from the same list once per day by meditating to realign yourself with the first world. Cool. I'm not sure what the primal spell list has. This one is mildly interesting because you can choose a cantrip. There's not much else to say really. You're going to get some role-playing stuff from, like, having the blood of the Fae in you. I think there's something you can do there. But generally, that's really it. I'd put that as mildly interesting. You see all colours as brighter, hear all sounds as richer, and especially smell or sense with incredible detail. You gain a special sense, imprecise scent. You get a special sense, imprecise scent within a range of 30 feet. This means you can use your sense of smell to determine exact locations of a creature. In addition, you get a +2 circumstance bonus to perception checks whenever you're trying to locate an undetected creature that's within the range of your scent. Okay, I can see some use out of this. Dealing with hidden enemies, dealing with undetected enemies. I can see the use out of it. I'll be honest. It doesn't give me any interest in... It doesn't give me any interest in terms of, like, role-playing stuff. Because although it says you can see all colours as brighter, hear sounds as richer, and smells as... all sense with incredible detail, it kind of seems... like it's just smell, really. You gain your ability just for smell. And I don't know, it doesn't particularly interest me. This one gives you dark vision, mildly interesting, not going to be something I build around. Wellspring Gnome. Some of the sources of magic have a greater hold on you than the primal magic of your Fey lineage does. The connection might come from an occult plane or an ancient occult song, a deity, celestial, or fiend magical effluent left behind by a mage war or an ancient rune magic. Choose Arcane Divine or Occult. You gain one cantrip. You gain one cantrip, it gets boosted. Whenever you gain a primal innate spell from a gnome ancestry feat, changes tradition from primal to the chosen tradition. Okay. I can see the interest in this. You can... It's effectively like, what if you don't want to do a Fey gnome? I can see the role-playing use of this. Like, you want to do a gnome that's been highly affected by, like, the celestial plane. You can do it now. A fiend plane, you can do it now. Like, I see the role... This is mildly interesting because of the role-playing aspects of, like, okay, what if I want to do a gnome, but I don't want it to be, you know, primal-based, you know? Animal accomplice. Yeah, I'll tell you what, hold on a sec. Quick overview. This one's incredible. This one's mildly interesting. This one, eh. This one, eh. This one, mildly interesting. Animal accomplice. You gain a rapport with an animal which becomes magically bonded to you. You gain a familiar using the rules on page blah 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 blah. But gnomes must choose an animal with a burrow speed. Okay. So like what? Like a giant worm or a mole or like a badger? Badgers probably have a burrow speed. Okay, I can see the use in that. I'm not really sure how. I've never rated familiars hugely highly, but I could see the use of that. I'd like to have a little animal buddy. I put that as mildly interesting. You hear animal sounds as conversations instead of unintelligible noise, and you can respond in turn. You can ask questions or receive answers from them, and use diplomacy skill with animals. In most cases, wild animals will give you time to make your case. Huge yes. Love this ability. It fundamentally gives you another thing that you can do that's unique to you. Makes your character maybe a bit more unique. I love this. I love that it isn't trying to like do half measures that you see with like the furbolgs in D&D, where it's like they kind of give you the ability to talk to animals and trees and stuff, but it's not really, and it's not like you actually hear them. You get a general sense, and it's like, just go all the way or don't go at all, you know. So I really like that. It's just you can talk to animals. They may not like you and they may not respond in kind, but they can talk to animals. Love that as an ability. 10 out of 10. Best feat. Fey Fellowship. You enhance your Fey connection, either through your blood or via prolonged contact with their kind. Affords you a warmer reception from creatures of the First World, as well as tools to foil their tricks and withstand their magic. You gain a +2 circumstance bonus to both perception checks and saving throws against Fey. Pretty cool. In addition, whenever you meet a Fey creature in a social situation, you can immediately attempt a diplomacy check to make an impression on that creature rather than needing to converse for 1 minute. You take a -5 penalty to the check. If you fail, you engage in a 1-minute conversation and attempt a new check at the end, rather than accepting the fail or critical fail as well. I like that. I really like that. I was starting to not like it when it said -5 penalty to the check, but then I saw that it's like, oh no, you get a quick check with a -5. Or, you know what I need to do actually? Hold on a second. Where's the black block? Boop. This is why myself is offline, so that I don't start doxing friends. But yeah, I really like this ability, because not only does it give you like a vaguely useful thing against the whole, like, Fae is something you might deal with. It's not a hugely popular thing, but you still might deal with it at some point. So it'll come up. So you've got the vague thing that you'd always get, where it's like, oh, you get a bonus against this vague thing, blah 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 blah, not very useful. But in addition, you get this other thing that is also vague, but is a really cool ability that allows you to do 2 checks, where normally one person would have to do 1. But the first check, you have effectively like a map to it. You have like a I've used a phrase there that I've just learned from Pathfinder. It's like multiple attack penalty. It's like you have that. You have like a penalty. First world magic. Your connection to the first world grants you a primal innate spell, much like those of the Fae. Choose one cantrip from the prime spell. You cast it. Yeah. Okay. But it's really cool. I like the fact that you can take that after being a wellspring and just have access to whatever wellspring spell list you chose. I like that a lot. Generally, I put these in mildly interesting because you can do a bit with spells. Not really any role-playing aspect. By the way, I didn't bring it up. This also is a pretty good role-playing thing. That's why I really like it. This one and this one. So this one. These two are probably like top tier for me at the moment. Because they also have role-playing elements to it. It's like, oh, why can you speak with animals? Have you been dealing with them a lot? Oh, why is your Fae connection so strong, even compared to your other Fae-related, brethrens? Gnome Obsession. You have a flighty nature, but when a topic captures your attention, you dive into it to head first. You get an additional lore feature, an assurance feature for that chosen lore. As the gnome sections come and go quickly, you can retrain Obsession to a different lore subcategory in 1 day of downtime. I don't like these. I wouldn't mind it if it gave a bit more of a bonus, but you stick to one thing. But I don't like switching. Now, that's not to say that nobody would like these. There is people that would like these. I just personally don't like them. If I was talking generally, that one would be mildly interesting. For me, that's... I'm never picking that. I'm never picking those ones. Because my characters are never... My characters are very much like me, in the sense that I don't think I can play someone that isn't like me to a bit... To, like, a tiny bit of a extent. To a tiny bit of a sense. And I'm not one of those people that's like, oh, I'll do a bit of this. Oh, I'm no longer interested in that. I'll do a bit of this. I'm the kind of person that's like, I'm doing this, I'm sticking with it, and until this is finished, I'm sticking with this. Familiarity is familiarity. I don't rate these very highly unless you're really into that weapon. Illusion sense. Your ancestors spent their time cloaked and cradled in illusion. As a result, sensing illusion magic is second nature to you. You get a +1 circumstance bonus to both perception checks and will saves against illusions. When you come within 10 feet of an illusion that can be disbelieved, the GM secretly rolls. I love this bit. It adds so much flavour to an existing just like a casual +1 circumstance bonus that makes me go, I don't really care about this, to, it's kind of mildly interesting. And that's sort of where I've settled on for this gnome ability. It's like mildly interesting. Like, I don't rate it hugely highly. Razzle Dazzle. It's a reaction? No, is that a free action? Oh, it's a free action. Once per hour, when you are if you are blind or dazzled from a creature, you use this free action. I think it's a free action. Yeah, I think that's what the free action means. Oh, it's when you blind or dazzle a creature. Sorry, I misunderstood that. You use this action once an hour to extend the duration of it by 1. Kinda good if you've built around using blind and dazzle. Yeah, I guess it's mildly interesting if you're doing that. It helps your build, I guess. Let's have a look at the 5th level stuff. Energized font. The prerequisite is you have a focus pool with at least one innate spell from a gnome heritage or ancestry feat that shares a tradition with at least one of your focus spells. I don't know how rare that is. I don't know. It feels a bit specific, but you can just regain a focus point using one action. You can do it once a day. Focus spells seem really good from when I've seen them. Some people use them loads, some people rarely use them. I don't know how hard it is to get one that has the sort of the gnome heritage or ancestral feat that shares a tradition. No idea. A project persona. Where others etch their armor to serve as a conduit for their imagination, your vivid mind and bold persona allows you to project a more fitting persona over your lackluster armor. You change the shape and appearance of your armor to appear as ordinary or fine clothes of your imagining. The armor statistics don't change. The effect lasts as long as you remain consciousness nor wearing the armor. A creature can disbelieve the illusion by sneaking or touching your armor. The DC equal to your will save. I love this for specific situations, and I think I rate stuff higher if I can see a situation where it'd be really, really useful and fun. The idea that I could be a heavily armored, or even like mildly armored, like I could be fully head to toe in like studded leather armor or like scale mail, and I can walk into a fancy noble party looking as if I'm wearing the fanciest like suit or the imaginable, but really I'm ready to fight if anything happens, is such a cool like thing to do. I think you'll get some use outside of that, of like being used as bait but while still having the armor on without people knowing, like, oh no, they're just wearing normal clothes. I think there's a lot of use to that. I probably say that this is like, I don't think this is incredible. I don't think it's just mildly interesting. I think it's kind of a middle ground, but I don't want to start putting middle grounds in there. Look at that. The idea that you could do this just casually as a chameleon gnome definitely is one of the reasons why I'd be so interested in this. Goblins. Let's have a look at you goblins. Shawhide Goblin. Your ancestors have connection to fire and thicker skin, which allows you to resist burning. You gain fire resistance equal to half your level. You also recover from being on fire more easily. Your flak check to remove persistent fire damage is DC 10 instead of DC 15, which is reduced to DC 5 if another creature uses a particularly appropriate action to help. So this is sort of like the Forged Dwarf, except the difference here is that the secondary effect isn't environment related, it's instead being set on fire related, which feels so like goblin coded. I'd probably put this in the same bit as the Forged Dwarf. I kind of like the persistent fire damage, like flat check, more as a concept, because a lot of things I've been seeing that do fire damage at minimum have a critical success that adds persistent, and at like max also add fire damage in, you know? So I quite like that. Right, I'm going to take a very quick break where I'm going to put us onto the Be Right Back screen. Mainly just because I'm going to mute the mic for a second and just try and do a quick fix for the camera and see if it works. So I'll see you in a second. Yep, see you in a second. Hello. Yeah, that's not gonna work. It's not gonna work. I need to actually fully look at it and see. But oh well. Let's get back on it. Let's get back on it. I thought I could fiddle stuff around and maybe get it working, but I don't think it... there's something I need to change with it. There's something it's not liking with... There's something it's not liking with the addition of this mic, I think. Which is fine. It had some teething problems before with the with the previous mic, so I think it'll be fine, but we'll see. We'll see. Anyway, what's next? Iron Gut Goblin. You can subsist on food that most folk would consider spoiled. You can keep yourself fed with poor meals in the settlement as long as garbage is readily available. Without using the subsist downtime activity, you can eat and drink things that, when you are sickened, you gain a +2 circumstance bonus to saving throws against afflictions, against gaining the sickened condition, and to remove the sickened condition. When you roll a success on a fortitude save affected by this bonus, you gain a critical success instead. All the benefits apply only when the affliction or condition resulted from something you were ingested. I think there's some role-playing stuff you can do with why that you're so why you can subsist on such like rancid food. I definitely think there's something you can do there. I don't think the ability is that good. I thought before when it said you get this bonus, I was like, okay, this bonus actually comes up more. So in games I've been watching of Pathfinder, being sickened seems to come up a decent amount. I think this as well is quite useful, because when you're sickened, I don't think you can drink a potion, which it can be quite devastating if they sickened you and then you can't heal. So I do think there is some use for that. I don't know. I'll put this in a maybe. Razor-toothed Goblin. Your family's teeth are formidable weapons. You gain the jaw unarmed attack that deals 1d6 piercing. Your jaws are in the brawling group and have finesse and unarmed traits. Every time I see... This is just going to be a spoiler if we get to it. Anytime we see something where it's like you get a new unarmed attack, I'm going to rate it slightly higher, because I kind of like the idea of making a monk that will use that. So with this, I kind of like the idea of like, oh yeah, I'm playing a monk, but really it's just a dude who's learned how to fight with his bare hands in survival situations. So I quite like this. So I probably put this in a maybe, which is funny because I wouldn't put this anywhere if it was D&D, because rules was written, I wouldn't be able to use these and get buffs to them. Snow Dwarf is exactly the same as the Forge Dwarf, except cold. It's okay. Unbreakable Goblin. You are able to bounce back from injuries easily due to exceptionally thick skull cartilage bone and some other mixed blessings. You gain plus 10 hit points from your ancestry, and you gain 10 hit points from your mastery and ancestry instead of 6. When you fall, reduce the falling damage you take as though you had fallen half the distance. I like this a lot. I like this as a general... Not only is it like a general buff to your ability to fight, because now you can play something that's a bit tankier and get more health to fight in that from your ancestry. It also gives you this nice ability that will occasionally come up that just half the distance you take damage. I think there's not many bad ones here, but there's not that many incredible ones. Like this one, it's okay. This one is okay. This one is okay. They're all okay. None of them are bad, which I think is pretty damn good. Let's have a look at racial feats. Burn it. Fire fascinates you. Your spells and alchemical items that deal fire damage gain a status bonus to damage equal to half your spell rank or 1/4 the item's level. You also gain a +1 status bonus to any percentile fire damage you deal. Love it. Absolutely love it. I can see myself making a whole character around fire damage, having this ability, as one of my things and loving every second of it. But as it says, I love building characters around abilities like this. I love specializing damage types as well, even if it'll screw me. Stuff like this will mean it'll screw me less. City Scavenger. You know, the greatest treasure often look like refuse. You get a +2 circumstance bonus to checks to subsist, and you can use society or survival when you subsist in a settlement. When you subsist in a city, you can gather valuable junk that silly Longshanks threw away. That feels like I said a swear word. You can earn income using society or survival at the same time while you subsist. Without spending an additional days of downtime, you also gain a +2 circumstance bonus to that check. If you have the Iron Goblin heritage, you increase this bonus to +2. First things first, love bonuses that also work with your racials. It actually ups my opinion of the subclass now, the subrace now, because I'm like, oh, I could also pick this, and this thing gives me so many little bonuses to stuff and little things I can do. So I could build it like a proper, like a survival one, which not only means I love this ability as much as I love this ability, it also makes me love this more, which I think is a bonus. If I was doing like 1 to 10, if before this was a 6, it's now a 7, and this one's like a 9, and so is this one. Goblin Law, I can take or leave, I don't care about. Goblin Scuttle. When an ally ends a move adjacent to you, move action adjacent to, you can reaction. You take advantage of your ally's movement to adjust your position. You step. That's huge. I like that a lot. I know I said I don't like movement abilities, but I don't like movement abilities because a lot of the time I feel like they're too complicated for me to figure out how to use in an average fight. Further than like, oh, there's a pit behind them, I make them move forward, I make them move back and they fall in the pit kind of thing. Like, more than that. This one, I instantly see how I use this. I play a character that's not that tanky but does a lot of damage and is melee based. My tank moves right next to the enemy, and that's also next to me. I trigger this. I move 1 step back out of their range. Because it's a step, I think it means that they don't take attacks of opportunity. Now they're dealing with the tanky person, I've gotten out and they can't focus me without using a movement ability. Perfect. Goblin Song. You sing an annoying goblin song, distracting your enemies with silly and repetitive limits. Attempt a performance check against the will DC of a single enemy within 30 feet. You can affect up to 2 targets within range if you have the expert proficiency in performance, 4 if you've master, 8 if you have legendary. Success, they get a -1 status penalty to perception checks and will saves. Critical success, they take 1 status penalty to perception checks and will saves for 1 minute, so it's 1 round normally. And then critical fail, they're just immune to it for an hour. I can see it being an interesting, fun build-around thing of like playing a bard and just unnaturally just being an annoying person, like, and having this in your repertoire would be quite interesting. Even if you never get focus into performance and it's just like an early thing that you do. For that, I'd put it as mildly interesting. Weapon familiarity, I don't care for. Junk Tinker. You make useful tools out of even twisted or rusted scrap. When using the crafting skill to craft, you can make level 0 items, including weapons and items, out of junk. This reduces the price to 1/4 the usual amount, but always results in a shoddy item. Shoddy items normally give a penalty, but you don't take this penalty when using shoddy items you've made. You can also incorporate junk to save money when you craft any item. This grants you a discount on the item if you have spent additionally 1 day working to reduce the cost. The item is obviously made out of junk. I kind of like this. Again, it's another one of those build-arounds. The idea that I could be like, I could go Iron Goblin Heritage, I could go City Scavenger, then I could take Junk Tinker and be this junk making, like junk crafting survivalist that's had to live on their own for so long that they've learned how to use anything they get, any tiny bit of junk, to try and survive more, and have been proficient in using said junk. I can see a character brewing just from those sets of like subclasses and feats. Rough Rider. You're especially good at riding traditional goblin mounts. You gain the Rhine feat, you gain +1 circumstance bonus to use command an animal on goblin dog or wolf mount. If you gain a wolf as an animal companion, it gains the mount special ability. This is very similar to the other feats we've seen, in the sense I look at that and go, well then that's a character idea. A dude who is like, he's a fighter, or like a cavalryman who rides his steed into battle that's a wolf or a goblin dog. And you know, that to me fundamentally makes a character. It might not necessarily have a load of role-playing things, although there's some stuff you can do there of like, why is he so used to having this wolf? Like, what's special about this wolf? How do they meet? That kind of stuff. But I think generally what I see when I look at that is that's a build around I can do. A proper build around of like, I can build a character with this being my main thing. Same with Junk Tinkerer, same with City Scavenger. They do a very good job at that. Very sneaky. Taller folk rarely pay attention to the shadows at their feet. You take full advantages of this. You can move 5 feet further when you take the sneak action up to your speed. In addition, as long as you continue to use the sneak action and succeed at your stealth checks, you don't become observed if you don't have a corner or cover or greater cover and aren't concealed at the end of your sneak action. As long as you have cover or greater cover or are concealed at the end of your turn. Right, this is very useful, because not only does it, because I didn't know how sneak worked, but based on the fact that this ability exists, I now know that you can't end your movement on a turn in broad daylight, which makes complete sense because people will just see you. But this one goes, no, you can, as long as you end your turn, like you end your turn moving again back into cover. Again, this is another build around. I'm really liking the goblin abilities here for just being like, I can see a character that would have this and I could build a character around that. I think is a really, really good thing that comes from these. 5th level abilities. You deliver a punishing blow to an enemy's knees, shins, or other vulnerable anatomy within your reach. Make a melee strike with a melee weapon or a melee unarmed attack. This attack doesn't deal damage. On hit, this target takes minus 10 foot penalty to speed or 15 foot penalty on a crit. The penalty lasts for 1 round. This penalty applies only if your target has a land speed and depends on legs or other tangible appendages to use its land speed. As with all penalties to speed, this cannot reduce a creature's speed below 5 feet. Right. Remember when we were looking at the iron, like the teeth goblin? And I was like, this is great. I love this. I could see myself making a character of a monk that uses that. I'm in a similar, I could see myself picking that subclass and then picking this 5th level feat and just having it where it's like he's a scrappy dude that uses literally everything he can do. I think this is a great thing. You don't necessarily have to go unarmed, but I just like the idea of him literally just kicking you in the shins. You could also go like a fighter, and I feel like it really works as just being this like proper grubby, like dirty fighter kind of thing. Loud singer. Staying on pitch, proper breath control, and remembering the words are all less important than the real measure of a good singer, volume. The range of your goblin song is increased to 60 feet and can target 1 additional enemy when you see them. I love that you can improve this. I love that you could still be a goblin bard that focuses some of their ability onto getting these -1 penalties on will saves using this. And then comboing it with your friend who does will save based stuff would be really cool. You have a knack for breaking and dismantling things, or putting them back together is the boring part. So you largely don't bother with that. You become trained in thievery. If you would automatically become trained in thievery from your background or class, for example, you instead become trained in a skill of your choice. In addition, whenever you hit with a strike against a trap or unintended object, you ignore the first 5 points of the object's hardness. This just feels like it'd be funny. I think this is one that I have less of an idea for a character for, but I do just think it's generally quite funny as an ability. Looking back on these goblin ones, I think Goblin's done the best in terms of making them feel like there's a character for them. Love this one. I can see a character for 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 Very Sneaky, and Kneecap, and Loud Singer, because it'll be the same as the one for the other one. Vandal I'm a bit iffy on. But like, they are really good at solidly making ones that you could see characters doing it. And sort of embodying what that character is. We've done Halfling. If you want to hear my opinion on the Halfling ones, watch the Halfling one. We've done Human. If you want to hear about that one, it's in the same one we did Halfling. Let's have a look at Leshy. I tell you what, this will probably be the last one I do. Leshy Heritage. By the way, this is the race that I love. I've always wanted to be a nature race, and the fact that there is one is insane. Cactus Leshy. Spines cover your body. You gain a spine unarmed attack that deals 1d6 piercing damage. Your spines are in the brawling group and have the finesse and unarmed traits. Love this, love this, love this. I love this, and I'm going to say this for all of them because it's fundamentally changing appearances, so it makes your character look more unique. But in addition to that, because I'm going to say that for all of them, the idea that I get a unique, interesting way in which I can do my fist attacks, that I can be a monk, or just generally use fists in a cool and interesting way is great. Love it. Fruit Leshy. Your body continuously produces small fruits imbued with primal magic. At dawn each day, a new fruit ripens. You and an ally can remove this fruit as an interact action. If a living creature that can derive sustenance from fruit consumes it as an interact action, within the next hour they regain 1d8 hit points plus an additional 1d8 for every 2 of your levels beyond the first. I like that. I really like that. Again, I'm gonna feel like I'm gonna say this for all of them, but I really like this is like, hey, I want to be like an apple tree Leshy. Oh, now you produce apples. It works with the trait. It's so cool. And it comes from there being such a diverse way you can make Leshies. So I love that one as well. In terms of the actual ability, kind of just like it as a little bit of extra healing. It's not too bad. It's effectively like, you're like a walking potential health potion thing. And it scales, which I'm always up for scaling. Fungal Body, you lose the plant trait, gain fungus trait, and gain dark vision. This is probably the one I'm the lowest on in terms of the actual ability, because the actual ability is just you gain dark vision. I'm not sure how useful the fungal trait is compared to the plant trait, and because I don't know that, I can't rate that. But what I will say is, just having it where you just have a fungal body doesn't interest me that much, if I'm being completely honest. I'm sorry, that one's probably the one I'm lowest on. Visual appearances, though, so cool. Like, role-playing aspects, all of these are really cool. You have a large gourd for a skull, and since you don't have a physical brain, you can use that space inside your head. You can store a collection of up to 1 bulk of objects within your head. The DC of checks to steal objects from inside your head increases by 4. Additionally, if you store only 1 object within your head, you can draw it effortlessly into your hand as part of an action to use an object. Drawing this item grants the other object the manipulate trait. Love this as an ability. You can see this being used in a very similar context to the armor illusion ability we saw the gnome had, where you're just like, aha, and you like take something out of your head. I think that's really, really cool. Also, just the flavor of like, I have a gourd for a head, or like whatever you want to use this for, and you just literally open your head and you have stuff in there. It's just such a cool image. Leaf fleshy, your body is mostly made out of natural foliage, and like leaves tumbling from a tree, you fall with particular grace. You take no damage from falling. Kind of a ability, but as with all of them, it's just a really cool, interesting concept. And the fact that you can go roleplay and say, hey, I want to have all these leaves on my character, and now you have a roleplay ability you get from it, is really cool. Lotus Lasher, you effortlessly float on the surface of water. You can walk on the surface of still water and other non-damaging liquids, moving at half your normal speed. You can also attempt to balance to move across the surface of flowing water using a DC of swim check to move through the water. When you do this, you can't move faster than half your speed, and if you fail or critically fail, you fall into the water rather than the normal effect. I like that as a concept. The fact that you can walk on water is a really cool ability. The fact that you can walk on flowing water as well is just a really cool ability generally. I think this one's a lot more interesting than, say, the leaf one or the fungal one. But I don't think it's as interesting as like the cactus or the fruit one, in my opinion. What's left? Root Leshy. Your body is made from hardy roots that attach you firmly to the ground. You gain 10 hit points from your ancestry instead of 8, so you can go a bit more tanky. You can go without sunlight for 2 weeks before you begin to starve. So if you're dealing with situations where maybe you're doing a lot more underground, which I guess would help for the fungus one as well, I imagine, and maybe that comes from the fungal trait. You gain +2 circumstance bonus to your fortitude and reflex DCs against for repositioning, shoves, or trips. I don't really rate that too highly. Applies to saving throws that attempt to move you or knock prone. Again, I don't rate those things incredibly highly, but the first bit, where you just have more health so you can be a bit more of a tanky boy, and the going without sunlight for 2 weeks, I do find a lot more interesting. Your body is made from woven seaweed, and you're just as comfortable underwater as on land. You gain a swim speed, and you can also breathe underwater. However, your land speed is reduced by 5 feet. I like that. I like the fact that you get a swim speed and you get to breathe underwater, which you'd very rarely see given to D&D characters because it would be too powerful. But they put that restriction of like, oh, but it lowered your land speed, which means it's fine. Your prehensile vines give you an unmatched skill at climbing. You do not have any hands free. You don't need to have any hands free to climb. Additionally, if you roll a success on an athletics check to climb, you get a crit success instead. I could see some really interesting ideas of like playing like a ranger or playing an archer, somebody who uses ranged attacks, and having you cling to a wall with your vines while shooting spells or shooting arrows. It seems really fun. Grasping reach. I tell you what, let's go through these again. Mildly interesting, mildly interesting, mildly interesting, mildly interesting. Would be an air normally, but mildly interesting. Actually, let me go back. Really fun, really fun, really fun, really fun, mildly interesting, really fun, like kind of the only no. Really fun, really fun. First level feats. You can extend a tangle of vines or tendrils to support your arms and extend your reach. When you would wield a melee weapon that requires 2 hands, doesn't have reach, and deals at least 1d6 damage, you can change between a typical 2-handed grip and an extended 2-handed grip using an interact action. Weapons wielded in your extended grasp gain reach of 10 feet. This grasp is less stable and powerful than a typical grip, reducing the weapon's damage die by 1 step. That's really fun. I really like that as a concept. It's like, oh, I need to hit that guy that's further away. Interact action. My vines now are tangled with it. I get less of I at least get an attack off, but the reach is, the damage is lower. Really love that. Really, really love that, actually. Harmlessly cute. Your size and demeanor makes it easy for you to convince others that you mean no harm. You gain the Shameless Request skill feat as a bonus action. I love it. I love it all as well. Even the +1, yeah, sure, whatever. But I love that Shameless Request. Please do it. Oh, I don't know. I can't do that right now. Puppy dog eyes. Okay, fine. I'll actually do it then. Leshy laws. Leshy law. I don't care. Leshy superstition. Whenever you make an attempt, whenever you attempt a saving throw against a spell or magical effect but haven't rolled yet, you can notice spirits that inhabit objects, learning which brings good fortune and which are unlucky. You focus on the power of a lucky object, granting you +1 circumstance bonus. I don't rate that too highly. I don't think that one's particularly good. Your body produces a near endless supply of hard seed pods. You gain the seed pod ranged unarmed attack with a range increment of 30 feet that deal 1d4 bludgeoning damage. On a critical hit, a seed pod bursts, issuing forth a tangle of vegetation that imposes a -10 foot circumstance penalty on the target's speed until the start of your next turn. Seed pods do not add critical specialization effects. Fair enough. I like that a lot. I've thought up a character specifically around having that ability because it seemed fun. Like the idea of being like a green pea and having like green pea pods on my hands that I shoot seeds out of seems just really, really fun. Or shooting peas out of. Shadow of the Wilds. It's difficult to notice your passage to the wild areas. As long as you're not in urban environments, you're always considered to be covering your tracks, even if you choose a different activity in exploration mode. Really, really fun. I've been watching a campaign where they did a bit of exploration, and the ability to cover your tracks just casually when you're doing something else feels like it'd be very useful. Undaunted. Your spirit has endured many challenges over its long existence. You've gained a +1 circumstance bonus to save against emotional effects if you roll a critical success. If you roll a success, you get a critical. I don't rate these ones too highly. I didn't rate the elf one that highly. It's an ability that is special. It's a +1 to a specific specialized thing. I don't rate it, if I'm being completely honest. Anchoring roots. Small roots spread from your feet, steadying you as you move. You gain the steady balance skill feat. Even if you aren't trained in acrobatics, you can use the anchor action, which is, if I'm on a solid surface, I can spend an action and I send my roots into or across the ground, making it harder for me to stumble until you move. You get a +2 circumstance bonus to your fortitude or reflex DC against attempts to move you effectively. Or +4 if you're a root lashy. I like that little bit of bonus. This bonus also applies to saving throws against spells that move you. Yeah. If the effect moves you, it moves you half the distance. Okay. I don't rate these kinds of abilities, but it gives you a skill feat and it gives you an ability that does this. So I rate it slightly higher than some of the others I've seen, but I don't rate it that highly. Leshy Glide. You need either the Leaf Leshy Heritage or the Catfall, which means I bet you it's about falling. Using your leaves, you can control your descent. You glide slowly towards the ground, 5 feet down and up to 25 feet forward through the air. As long as you spend one action gliding each round and have not reached the ground, you remain in the air at the end of your turn. I like that. So it's like, not only do I not take damage from falling, I can also effectively fly. You can temporarily revert to a less conspicuous form without diminishing your senses. You take the form of an ordinary specimen of your type of plant or fungi, reverting your bodily appearances to just before your spirit joined with them. This otherwise has the effect of one with plants, except for your size that remains small. That's really good. The idea that you can sneak around as you can turn into a plant to just like hide yourself is something that feels like you get a lot of use out of. So I do rate that ability quite highly. Speak with kindred. You have connection with the creatures to share your physiology. You can ask questions or receive answers from and use diplomatic skills with plants and fungi. Love it. Just give me the ability. I don't care if you have to put it at a higher level. To give me the ability to just fully speak with them. You also get a bonus to your types. So fungi get it with mushrooms, gourds get them with gourds, melons, and similar fruiting plants. Leaves get them with certain kinds of trees, vines with vines, and climbing plants. Blah 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 blah. I like this a lot. I really really like this a lot. Let's go quickly through them. This one I really really like. This one I really really like. This one take your leave. This one take your leave. This one I really really like. Well, this one I'm mildly interested in. This one, This one, This one I really really like. This one I really 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 like. Now I'm gonna call it here. I need to do some more techie stuff with my camera. We'll see if I can get it working for tomorrow. I might be a camera stream tomorrow, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. But until then, I hope everyone's had a fun time. I've had a fun time just speaking, and it's better than just me sitting there doing nothing. So that's kind of why I did it. Until then.